My story really starts from 33 when the accident happened, but I came to America at age 26. I had a few businesses. I was teaching martial arts for years. I was a decent human being. I never broke the law. But when it comes to materialism, when it comes to the opposite of spirituality, that's where my mind and heart were at the time. So I was really into making money. I remember that at age 33, I was working as a correctional officer for the state of Illinois. And I work at a maximum security prison. And for those of you who don't know, maximum security prisons are where the worst of the worst are being housed. It's people that have a minimum sentence of 25 years and above. So why am I saying this? Because just to describe you the spiritual energies that I was observing in that place behind those walls were just something out of this world. But at the time, I didn't pay any attention to it. I was trying to block it off because I wanted to make money. We were working crazy hours, and I'm talking about 14-hour shifts, and I was working the night shift. During my working overtime, I couldn't sleep very well when I got back home because I was thinking about the prison and the scenes that I've seen there. So it was really, really bad energies that prevented me to sleep. So I was working at my business as a martial artist, going home, taking a shower, getting in my uniform, and going to work at the prison. Because I was new, fairly, and I didn't have seniority, I was only there for 2 years. My days off were never the weekends, but they were Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And on your days off, they could not mandate you to work overtime. And I remember it was a Tuesday morning, and I'm like, I'm just going to go home and I'm going to relax and I'm going to see my kids and it's going to be fun. Nobody's going to mandate me. And I was really excited. Tuesday morning arrived and I remember it was a sunny day. It was a nice day. And I didn't feel tired. Like most days I would feel very, very, very tired, but I didn't feel tired during this one. For some reason I was very, very, like I had an adrenaline rush because I felt like I'm going to go and do something fun tonight. I don't know what, but it's going to be fun. And I got into my van and I'm going into this route called Route 3, which is like an hour straight forward drive, cornfields on both sides, nothing. And you just drive back home. And I remember it was 7 a.m. and I'm driving on that Route 3 in my uniform. And I'm doing 70 miles per hour because that was the speed limit. I wasn't speeding because I was a correctional officer. I was in uniform. You have to obey the law always, but especially when you're in uniform, you can't even speed a little bit. You got to do the speed limit. And I don't know what happened, but in a split second, I don't know if I dozed off, if I fell asleep. I don't know what happened, but it was a split second. And all of a sudden, I feel that my wheel just locked. I feel that my brakes locked. They were stuck. Nothing worked. Like it wasn't any hydraulic fluid in them. So here I am in my van, and then it started hydroplaning and spinning. And I didn't panic, but I just didn't understand what just happened. And I'm looking at the speed gauge at the time and hoping that the speed's gonna go down so I can try to control the car. And instead it was going up. So it went from 70 to 75 to 80 to 85. And I didn't understand what was going on. And then across from me in the opposite lane, and I could remember through the windshield, I saw the car approaching while I was spinning, and there was a lady there with 2 of her little kids in the back seat. And I remember telling myself, no matter what happens, if I fell asleep or not, it doesn't matter. You're not taking other lives with yours. So with everything I had, I was just steering my wheel to the right as hard as I could. And then I was facing this concrete wall, a divider of some sort. And I'm looking at the speed gauge and it's 85 miles per hour. And I remember that as closer I got to this concrete wall, time slowed down dramatically. And I remember holding the wheel, and just like people say that, you see your whole life in front of you, I just remember that I had the biggest smile on my face. I'm smiling like I'm about to welcome a loved one at the airport that I haven't seen in years. And I just didn't know why, but I was smiling and I wasn't afraid. And then I heard the impact sound, the blast. It was the loudest explosion sound I've ever heard in my entire life. And I've heard some explosions before and nothing like that. And then all I could remember was the airbag starting to deploy, but it was so slow and it looked to me like it was just sheets hanging outside to dry. It was like beautiful white sheets. And then all I remember is opening my eyes upside down and note, I remember everything that happened. From the moment I left the prison to the time I lost control over the car and the lady across from me that I had to avoid, the impact, I remembered everything. So it's not like I was out and I didn't know what happened. I was upside down. I'm in my van, and there are a lot of pictures of it online, and the van was squashed like a soda can. And the body of the torn vehicle formed some sort of like fork-like swords that were just on me. And I'm underneath, and I wake up, and it's the absolute best feeling I've ever felt in my entire life. I remember that I was amazed with the fact that there was no sound. It was as if the sound was sucked out of this world completely. Of course, there's no pain, there's no smell, there's no sense of touch. There's absolutely nothing. And then I noticed that my thoughts are gone. I didn't have any thoughts. I just existed. I didn't have any question marks. I knew everything. I felt protected. I felt blissful. I felt home. Now I'm seeing everything. I'm still in the car. The car was completely squashed. And almost like the driver's side, my side, got the most impact. Like technically I was supposed to be decapitated pretty much. And I'm there figuring out like what's going on. I mean, I'm still stuck, but I'm like, it's the best feeling in the world. Like somebody's tickling you constantly and there's nothing to worry about. And you just live a true definition of living unconditionally, living with no problems, nothing negative in your life, with no question marks, with no doubts. And I remember that I kind of figured out that I need to get out of this situation, even if I passed away and this is what it feels. And I look outside and I see a lady right outside the van. She was pacing back and forth. She looked like she was old. She was mid-60s and she was dressed in black and her clothes were like from the 1800s, something like that. She had a burn scar on her right cheek, headscarf, and she's just walking. And I remember being upside down and I know I couldn't speak because there's no sound. There's absolutely nothing. It was just my vision. And I remember that I was just waving because I wanted to be able to get up. And she was pacing back and forth. And every time I asked for help, I was waiting for help. She just nodded no. She didn't speak. She just said that. She nodded no. And at the time, old me would have probably got upset and frustrated and not understand why I'm not getting any help. And I remember that I didn't judge her. At that time, I was thinking, maybe she's just too worried that she's going to do more harm than good. Maybe she's worried that the car is going to set on fire and something's going to happen. Maybe she's just scared. So I didn't judge her. And I told myself I still want to enjoy this experience, this dream state. So I decided to close my eyes and get up and try again to get out and explore. And the second I closed my eyes, they opened right up and everything came back to life. Everything. The sounds, the smells, a lot of gasoline smell in the car, and the car was still turned on and I had to turn it off. And I felt the pressure on my knee because everything was, I was crushed completely. And I started panicking. I started not understanding what's going on. And then I see, I think hundreds of people outside the car, all the way up to the road. It was like 3 fire trucks, 2 ambulances. It was crazy. And I didn't understand why, because I felt great. I just wanted to get out. So I remember this paramedic just ran into my van and just did like a football tackle right into the window and screamed at me from the top of his lungs, said, "Do not move." And I remember saying back, I'm okay. I promise I'm okay. And then it was like, no, you're in bad shape. You think you're okay, but this is bad. It looks bad. We don't know what's going on. And just don't move. And then he gave me IV through the window. And I remember telling him, why are you giving me IV through the window? Just get me out of here, sir. I'm okay. And he said, we can't get you out. We're going to have to call the firefighters. They're on their way with the jaws of life. And if some of you don't know what the jaws of life are, it's some hydraulic machinery that's supposed to tear apart the vehicle and then you can extract the passengers. I was just trying to say that I'm okay. Nobody would listen. So I decided to just close my eyes and think about the experience and try to connect. I was almost meditating without knowing what meditating was. And that was so wonderful because here I am closing my eyes, kind of meditating, and I hear the firefighters using their hammers and saws and they're cutting the car and everybody's screaming, and I'm the most relaxed. Everybody is in chaos around me and I have the most peace. The second that they got me out of the car, they cut my uniform immediately with scissors, and one of them gave me a morphine shot without even asking my permission for my stomach. So I felt everything's burning. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I kept trying to tell him that I'm okay, that I can even stand. I was fine. And nobody would listen. And they put me in the stretcher and they strapped me. And they're like, you don't know, you probably have many, many fractures and you've been bleeding and brain damage. And they said everything because of how the car looked. Because the fact that I hit the concrete wall in 80 miles per hour, that would kill 95% of people. And I remember they were rushing me, so I decided to just cooperate so they don't just think I'm crazy and, I don't know, give me medication. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go, I'll do it. I'll do what you want me to do. So they took me, and this is my first time ever in an ambulance like that. There was like intensive care one. And they just go crazy fast, and the sirens like in the movies. And I remember there was a sheriff lady that was sitting there in the ambulance. I was like, may I ask you a question, please? And she said, well, it's better that you don't right now because you're in bad shape and you need to get tested. And after that, I'll take my report anyways. And I remember that I really insisted because something didn't end up to me at all. And I said, ma'am, I insist, can I please ask you a question? And she said, well, go ahead. And I remember saying, isn't it illegal for a citizen not to help and not a citizen in distress? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I go, well, there's a lady there. I mean, I was stuck, and before you guys got here, I was trying to get out, and I was waving, and she just shake her head no and wouldn't help me. The sheriff lady said, there was no lady there. We were the first ones in the scene. We were in the middle of a field with nobody around you, and people from the prison called the police and neighbors, and people were just gathering everywhere. And then I remember telling myself, okay, this is getting interesting. I better just not share it with anybody until I figure this out. And that was miracle number one. So I get to the hospital. And for those of you who don't know, like in a hospital, you can go to the ER, or sometimes there's the trauma room. The trauma room is for when there are severe, the accidents or airlifting, like you need to save somebody's life immediately. And I go there and they just scan me from head to toe, everywhere. And I remember just standing there and letting them do their thing. And I go to the bed waiting for the doctor. And I remember I had some friends coming to visit me because they heard from another friend that I'm there. And the doctor came to me and he said, listen, I've been here many, many, many years. I've never seen anything like that before. And I said, well, what are you talking about, doctor? What'd you find? And he goes, well, you didn't even break a nail. You don't even have a bruise. You don't even have any type of inflammation. Nothing at all. Like you weren't even involved in any sort of impact. And he was really asking if that was me. And I remember showing him a scratch that I had here on my hand. And that scratch was not because of the accident itself. It's because when the firefighters used the jaws of life and they were pulling me out of the car, all the glasses were broken, of course, shattered, and they pulled me fast. So my hand hit one of the broken windows and I got a small little scratch. But I'm telling you, a day after, I was at work. And I remember even going to the place where the junkyard where they took my car because I wanted to get a battery because I had to get another car. So I needed a brand new battery that I just bought for the car that was involved in a car accident. And I'm going there and I remember the owner come to us and he's sending us his condolences and said, well, I'm sorry about your friend. The one who was here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's me. I want my battery. And I remember he almost fainted. He was like, there's no way you came out of this. I was like, yeah, with nothing. And at the time, it was very confusing and even entertaining. But shortly after, a month after, I started encountering the visions. And note, I was so skeptical in the beginning. I was so into materialism. I would make fun of anything spiritual back in the day. I would just be so against it. And I was so skeptic, but I kept encountering these visions, these clairvoyant messages. And everything was just like I told you in the beginning, it's like you find out you're conceived when you have the moment of accident, your near-death experience, you're crossing to the other side, which in my case, I believe it was some, you have an elevator and you have the floor between the floors, which is nothing. So I think that I was there and not fully crossed over. That's why I didn't leave the car, spiritually speaking, but I was feeling the soul experience 100%. And I just remember that I was just like life was throwing me like a rag doll from side to side, place to place, and everything in my life, from relationships to jobs to people I meet. And it was all with so many challenges that's supposed to almost break a person. Only later we realize that these, what people call challenges, I call blessings. These are the real blessings. When we actually get to face the trial that we're here for, part of our soul journey, and overcome it and at least surrender to it, understand it. So there was just years and months of just encountering these psychic abilities and getting messages with numbers. It didn't scare me, but it was like I kept making the connection to the accident and I started accepting it. But it was really, really, really tough because when you're truly spiritually awakening after something like that, it equals to you get to the stage of the birth, the delivery itself, the contractions, the pain, the screaming. You know, you're like hatching from an egg. You just and every awakening, if you were even in nature, animals, people, when we hatch, when we just being born, it's a slow awakening. It's something very, very intense. And that's what happened. And since then, there was 7 years that in the end of the seventh year, I was able to unite with my twin flame, which was the missing puzzle in my life to complete the spiritual awakening. It's not necessarily getting rid of your ego, but it's learning to live with it and balancing it so you always have your soul over the ego and not the other way around. And because of that, the consciousness, the knowledge is still being inherited to me or given to me daily, and through the fact that I help people every day and I learn to live the life for the spirit and life of a soul and like a soul. And a lot of people ask me, do you have to have an NDE to wake up? Absolutely not. You can wake up just in a blink of an eye from somebody smiling at you, from you having a child, falling in love, connecting, tapping into your soul. So yeah, and that's my story. And since then, I've been for the past 2 years just daily helping people from all over the world.
Hey, fellow NDE fans, we have some exciting things coming up on the other side, but we could really use your help and support to keep going with this channel. Our outreach team works around the clock, making sure to bring you the best NDE stories that we can find. But now we're looking to expand into other countries to get near-death experiences from around the globe. However, we need your help and support to make this happen. This is why we're introducing our YouTube membership program. Get access to exclusive ad-free episodes that haven't been on YouTube. Watch and participate in live Q&As with the guests. Engage directly with us and NDEers. Participate in giveaways and live events. And most importantly, you will ensure our channel's continuous efforts to seek out and uncover these important experiences worldwide. Support us by hitting the Join Now button below. Thank you for your continued viewership and support. Your help will make a difference, and we look forward to building our community together with you.